Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. I was really looking forward to this one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this book Ruminations by Tahir Abbas. It's really gotten under my skin in a good way.
I know what you mean. It's one of those books that stays with you long after you've finished it.
Exactly. And it's such a unique blend of personal memoir and this sharp social commentary.
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from the tough topics.
No, he doesn't. He tackles these massive global issues like colonialism,
Yeah.
racism, you name it. But he does it in a way that feels so personal and relatable.
Yeah, like he's inviting you into his thought process,
Yeah.
taking you on this journey with him.
And you're right, it does feel like a journey. From his childhood in the UK to these broader reflections on history and identity.
And it's fascinating how he weaves those two threads together.
Right. Like that part where he talks about spitting on the ground, trying to be like his football heroes.
Oh, yeah, and his dad catches him and immediately blames it on the diverse group of kids he went to school with.
It's such a small moment, but it's so telling.
It is. It speaks volumes about how quickly we form judgments based on cultural backgrounds.
Totally. It's like we try to pinpoint a single source for someone's behavior. But identity is rarely that simple, is it?
Not at all. And Abbas really gets at that complexity throughout the book.
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from those contradictions or those internal conflicts.
And he also talks about those positive influences, like his economics teacher, Mrs. Moisey.
Oh, yeah. She sounds like a force of nature.
She really does. She saw his potential and pushed him to excel. Didn't just teach him economics, but empowered him.
It makes you think about the impact that a single person can have on someone's life, right?
Absolutely. It's remarkable how much a good mentor can make a difference.
It's huge. Like, for me, I had this art teacher in high school, Mr. Henderson. He totally changed my perspective on creativity.
Really? How so?
Well, he just had this way of seeing potential in my work that I didn't even realize was there, you know?
I totally get that. It's like they unlock something in you that you didn't even know was there.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder where we'd be without those guiding influences in our lives.
It's true. Those mentors, those people who believe in us, they can be real game changers.
Absolutely. And speaking of influences, Abbas talks a lot about the power of education, but also about the ways in which our experiences, particularly in school, can shape our understanding of race stereotypes, even athleticism.
It's true. He talks about how even something as seemingly simple as a cricket match can reveal these deeper societal dynamics.
Right. Like that anecdote he shares about the disastrous cricket match with his team of skinny Imran Khan wannabes.
Up against those large, towering Caribbean boys.
I know. It's a funny story, but it also makes you think about how these stereotypes about race and athleticism play out in such subtle ways.
Definitely. And how those stereotypes can shape our expectations and perceptions from a very young age.
It's so true. And it reminds us that these issues are complex and nuanced. There are no easy answers.
Absolutely. And that's what makes Abbas's work so compelling. He's not afraid to grapple with those complexities.
And he does it in a way that makes you want to grapple with them too.
Exactly. He's not preaching. He's inviting you to think critically and to question your own assumptions.
And that's what I love about this book. It's not just about understanding history. It's about understanding ourselves and our place in the world.
It's about connecting those personal stories to the larger social and historical forces that shape our lives.
And that brings us to a key concept in the book, what Abbas calls urgent history.
Right. This idea that understanding the past, particularly the legacy of colonialism, is crucial to understanding the present.
Exactly. It's not just about looking back. It's about understanding how those historical forces continue to shape our world today.
It's about recognizing that the past isn't really past. It's still very much present in the inequalities and injustices we see around us.
And he argues that we can't address those inequalities without first understanding their historical roots.
It's like he's saying, we can't move forward without first looking back.
And really grappling with the complexities of that past, it's like we're looking for the origins of those threads,
Right.
trying to trace them back to their source.
Exactly. And one of the things Abbas argues is that even though slavery was officially abolished like centuries ago, it didn't really disappear. It just morphed into different forms of exploitation.
Oh, wow, yeah, like colonialism.
Exactly. He makes this really compelling case that colonialism was essentially fueled by those same racist ideologies that justified slavery in the first place.
That's a powerful argument.
Yeah.
It's like he's drawing this direct line from the past to the present, showing how these systems of oppression evolve, but they never really go away.
It's like they just become more sophisticated, more insidious.
Yeah, it's like this hidden architecture beneath the surface,
Right.
shaping the world in ways that we don't always see or understand.
And one of the things that I appreciate about Abbas's work is that he doesn't shy away from connecting these historical forces to the challenges we face today.
Right, like the rise of Islamophobia.
Exactly. He talks about how fear and misunderstanding of Islam have fueled so much discrimination and violence, and he emphasizes this urgent need for more nuanced perspectives.
It's like we're so quick to generalize about entire groups of people, aren't we?
It's true. And those generalizations are often rooted in fear and ignorance rather than any kind of real understanding.
And that fear can be so easily manipulated, especially in times of uncertainty and change.
Which brings us to another complex issue that Abbas tackles: Brexit.
Right. Whether you agree with it or not, Brexit is a prime example of how these anxieties about identity, belonging, economic security can play out on a global stage.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And Abbas doesn't shy away from dissecting those anxieties. He talks about the role of economic insecurity, the resurgence of nationalism, anti-immigrant sentiment.
It's like this perfect storm of factors that led to this really pivotal moment in history.
And it's a moment that we're still grappling with the consequences of today.
It's like those ripples just keep expanding outward, don't they?
We do. And it's a reminder that we're all interconnected, whether we realize it or not.
We are. And what happens in one part of the world can have a profound impact on the rest of us.
And unfortunately, sometimes those impacts are incredibly harmful, like we're seeing with the resurgence of white supremacy.
It's frightening, isn't it, to think that after all the progress we've made, we're still battling these hateful ideologies.
It's like this ugly undercurrent that never really went away, and now it's resurfacing with a vengeance.
And it's finding fertile ground in these online spaces where misinformation and hate speech can spread like wildfire.
It's true. Social media has become this double-edged sword. On the one hand, it has the power to connect people and amplify marginalized voices. But on the other hand, it can be a breeding ground for extremism and hate.
And it's not just happening in these dark corners of the internet. We're seeing these extremist views seeping into mainstream politics.
You're right. It's like this normalization of hate speech that's incredibly dangerous.
It's like we become desensitized to it, like it's just become part of the background noise.
And that's what's so concerning, because when we become numb to hate, it becomes that much easier to ignore it, to tolerate it.
And ultimately to become complicit in it.
Exactly.
It's a lot, isn't it? Like, by this point, it would be easy to just throw your hands up and say, well, what's the point?
Right.
But thankfully, Tahir Abbas doesn't leave us there.
No, he doesn't. He offers this really hopeful message. It's like a breath of fresh air.
It is. Like, even amidst all this darkness and complexity, he still believes in our capacity for change.
He does. And he's not naive about the challenges. We're talking about deeply entrenched systems of oppression.
Right. It's not going to be easy to dismantle those systems.
No, it won't. But Abbas argues that we can't afford to give in to despair.
It's like a shot of adrenaline, right? Reminding us that we have agency, we have power.
He is. And he talks about the importance of education, critical thinking, social action as tools for change.
It's like he's calling on us to become more informed, more engaged, more willing to challenge the status quo.
And to challenge ourselves, to examine our own biases and assumptions.
Right, because real change starts with that inner work, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. We have to be willing to look inward before we can effectively work outward.
I love that. It's like he's saying that self-reflection is a revolutionary act.
It is, because when we're willing to confront our own blind spots, our own prejudices, we open up this space for empathy and understanding.
And then that's where real progress begins, right?
Absolutely. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and working together to create a more just and equitable world.
So where do we go from here? Like, how do we take these big ideas, these complex realities, and translate them into tangible action?
Well, Abbas poses some really thought-provoking questions, like how can we become more aware of our own biases? How can we work to dismantle systems of oppression? What are the potential solutions to these massive global challenges?
Those are the good questions.
They are. But they're questions that we have to grapple with. And what I appreciate about Abbas's approach is that he doesn't just leave it up to governments or institutions to find the answers.
Right. It's on all of us, isn't it?
It is. He really emphasizes the power of individual action. Like even small acts of resistance or education or compassion can make a difference.
It's like those ripples again, right? Like even the smallest pebble can create these waves of change.
Exactly. And those waves can build on each other, gain momentum, create real lasting impact.
I love that. It's a reminder that we're not powerless. We all have a role to play in creating the future we want to see.
We do. And that brings us to this final thought-provoking observation that Abbas makes. He says that despite all of our technological advancements as a species, we're still grappling with the same fundamental problems: greed, conflict, and inequality.
It makes you wonder if we're hardwired for this. Like, is this just who we are?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's a question that Abbas leaves us to ponder.
Because ultimately the answer depends on the choices we make each and every day.
It does. We have the power to choose a different path to create a better future. But it starts with acknowledging those hard truths about ourselves and our world.
It does, and I think that's what makes Ruminations such a powerful book. It doesn't shy away from those hard truths. It leans into them. And in doing so, it invites us to do the same.
To reflect, to learn, to grow, and ultimately to act.
Well said. What a journey this has been. Thank you all for joining us for another deep dive. Keep those conversations going, and we'll see you next time.